Alcoholics of Reddit, what made you quit drinking? Almost killing 348 people. I'm a pilot, and while I was drinking, the hard line I drew for myself was that I would never drink and fly. I told myself I would stick to that rule, no exceptions, and then everything would be fine and I didn't have a drinking problem. So as you can imagine, one evening I showed up to fly a red-eye, overnight flight, intoxicated as a skunk. I'll admit this wasn't the first time I'd flown under the influence, but this was a whole different kettle of fish. I was gone. I wish I could tell you what the F made me think this was okay, but I think at that point I was just at such a low that, as horrible as this is, I didn't even care if I was safe to fly, because I hated my life so much that F it, might as well roll the dice. I realize that's horrible because we're talking about other people's lives, but there you have it. No one had ever noticed before when I showed up inebriated, but this time I absolutely got clocked by a gate agent on my way in. I made it onto the flight. She was new to the airport and didn't know all the steps for immediate protocol, but I knew she was going to report it and that I was cooked. Once I heard a couple flight attendants on the plane gossiping about it after we'd taken off. That sealed it. I spent the entire flight wondering how I was going to get out of this one. I decided my only option was to get the plane in way ahead of schedule so that whoever had been flagged to meet me on the other side wouldn't be there yet, hoping to God that arriving in the middle of the night was going to be my saving grace. So I hauled it to the city we were flying to, somehow got all of us there in one piece, and as soon as we deplaned, I bolted. Didn't get my bags, didn't grab my stuff from the cockpit, just got the hell out of Dodge. I wasn't scheduled to fly for the next 3 days and I spent that time basically in hiding. I got a ton of texts from FAA reps telling me to call them and I just completely ignored them. And let's be real, what else did I do? Drank and drank. But I at least had the presence of mind to stop in time to pass any breathalyzer tests I knew I'd get when I went back. Because even though I thought about completely ghosting my job, how was I going to drink if I didn't have income? So when my next scheduled flight came around, I showed up, sober, heart pounding out of my chest, and slapped on a smile and waltzed in there like everything was normal. Obviously I was immediately stopped and questioned by the FAA, but I'd expected that and prepared a story about food poisoning and having to run to the bathroom as soon as I was off the plane and being laid up the whole weekend unable to check my phone. I could tell they didn't really believe me, but they breathalyzed me and it came back fine and they couldn't prove anything. So all they could do was slap me with some disciplinary notice for not completing some post-flight procedural stuff. So everyone lived and I didn't lose my job. So why didn't I keep drinking? Because as I was walking out of the disciplinary meeting, I realized that my biggest fear throughout this whole situation hadn't been that I'd lose my job, and when I was in the air it wasn't the possibility that I'd kill myself or hundreds of other people. It was that I was going to get sent to prison where I wouldn't be able to drink. When that sounds worse to you than being a mass murderer, that's pretty hard to ignore. I wish I could say my recovery was a straight line from that day out, but I can say that I never flew anything other than stone cold sober after that, and I've now been completely sober both on and off the ground for 8 years. I'm grateful every day for my sobriety and for whoever was looking out for me and those passengers that night.